You are live. Welcome to the Shoy Show. It is Saturday, July 18th, 2026. You only get one of these. And unfortunately, I haven't been on air for a couple of weeks. Why? Because the World Cup, life got to me, and I stopped prioritizing the show. Shame on me. Shame. Shame, shame, shame. Because if you aren't doing what you want to do, then you are not living a life fulfilled. Full stop. We're all gonna die, apocalypse, aliens taking over, all things considered. You better be doing what you want every single day of your life. Every time the sun comes up, you should be happy and compelled to move toward your goals, activities that you want to complete, that you want to take part of, whatever that is. And unfortunately, that's not my everyday day job. I don't want to do my job anymore. IT project management was once all I could think about. And I feel very fortunate to have worked for the companies that I did. And I'm still working right now. But man, I want to control my own destiny. This is something that I want to do. So do it every day. Because if you don't, you'll look back on your life and you will be filled with regret. Most likely I will. I think I will. So let's get on with the show. So, the National Park Service has reportedly been instructed not to publicly confirm deaths or severe injuries that occur inside America's national parks under new Interior Department guidance. Now, as we move forward through these topics, the first question that you have to ask is, does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make much sense. Why would we not report on deaths or severe injuries? Wouldn't you want to know, hey, I'm going to Yellowstone National Park. I always wanted to go there. But there were 200 deaths reported last year. Maybe I should look up some safety measures. Maybe I wouldn't recommend this park for children or to my friends and my family. Why wouldn't we be transparent about something like this? Now, according to the policy, park employees can acknowledge that an incident happened and that emergency personnel responded, but they cannot confirm whether someone died. Now, this is coming from the Trump administration. And I'm not putting blame here. It doesn't matter, but it is coming from their Interior Department. So that responsibility is reserved for designated authorities after family members have been notified. The Department of the Interior says that the policy protects privacy, ensures consistency across agencies, and prevents families from learning devastating news through the media or social networks. For decades, however, many national parks followed a different approach. Once relatives were informed, park officials routinely released information about fatalities, dangerous conditions, and emergency incidents to the public. So where is the transparency here? Why wouldn't you want us to know what occurred inside of a public good? It is a national park. It is owned by the United States. It is funded by our taxpayer dollars. Why would you refrain or withhold this information? Now, of course, hundreds of people, thousands, across all parks actually die every year. Heat exposures, falls, drownings, vehicle accidents, and medical emergencies remain among the leading causes. Recent incidents across major parks include heat-related deaths at the Grand Canyon, fatal falls in Yosemite, and drownings in California parks. And these have renewed debates over how quickly information should be shared and who should control it. Why wouldn't the government want the public to know how many people died in a national park? That's the question that we keep coming to. They are public lands. They belong to all of us. The statistics, the incidents, the historical record, none of that belongs to bureaucrats. They shouldn't be deciding what information we should or shouldn't receive. If a trail becomes unusually dangerous, shouldn't families planning a vacation know about that? If multiple people die from heat exposure in a single summer, isn't that information that could literally save lives? And beyond safety, what about history? We track deaths from natural disasters. We know how many people died, roughly, in Hurricane Katrina. We track aviation accidents, workplace accidents. We keep records because the facts matter, because patterns matter. And future generations, they deserve an honest account of what occurred. This administration, this Interior Department, is deciding otherwise. When you change what we will record, you are, as a matter of fact, changing history. So why make this different? Isn't this one of the core conservative principles that government should be transparent and accountable to the people for? Isn't skepticism of centralized control over information supposed to be a bipartisan value? Most importantly, how are you making me trust the government more with this type of policy? Because when government agencies begin deciding which facts the public receives and when they receive them, people naturally start asking questions. Is this really about protecting families? How so? You don't have to disclose the names, but you should disclose the incident. You should disclose how many people were involved, how many incidents occurred, over what time period. We don't need the sensitive information to be revealed, do we? Is it about controlling media narratives? That's usually the case. Or avoiding bad headlines that might impact tourism? I'm happy that we widely understand that Mount Everest is extremely dangerous. Therefore, most people will not choose to traverse that mountain. It's the same thing with any of these national parks. If there are wild animals or dangerous trails, dangerous creeks, I would want to know about that. I would want to know if people disappeared. I would want to know if people were committing suicide, if there were homicides. Because that gives myself the ability to make the best informed decision for both me and the people around me. Of course, nobody wants families finding out through Twitter before getting a phone call. But after that process is complete, why shouldn't Americans know exactly what happened on American public lands? Transparency isn't a luxury. It's the foundation of trust. And it is the responsibility of the people that we elect to make sure that that information is disseminated responsibly. More importantly, once governments become comfortable with the idea of withholding this information, the question then becomes, where does that stop? It is a slippery slope. What do or you don't have to tell us? I mean, this is kind of where we have to draw the line, isn't it? Most of the things coming out of the White House, whether it's this administration or the previous or the one before that, most of them are unbelievable. They withhold information on things like Epstein, aliens, the reasons we go to war, and they say it's to protect the people. Fine, that's okay. Now we're talking about national parks. National parks. We're talking about places where we go because we just want to visit, spend time, view nature. And you're saying that we shouldn't know about the data behind incidents that occurred. I just don't understand why the government would choose to withhold this information. Hey. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks, Ma. Bye. Okay. Thanks, Ma. Bye. Love you. Bye. All right. Next topic. Let's get into. I mean, this topic's just wild. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, gait recognition. So your face is no longer the only thing that they can track. Gait recognition can identify people by the way they walk, not their face, not their fingerprints, their walk. And this technology not only analyzes your stride length, but your posture, your walking speed, your arm movement, leg angles, body proportions, and the rhythm of your steps. It takes all those movements and creates a biometric template, essentially a digital signature for your moving body. These are some images, and it gets real technical from here. I mean, it's essentially a schematic understanding your precise movements as a human being. This is a digital footprint, if you will. And this is actually the technology in action. Understanding our precise movements, how we walk, our rhythm, our cadence. Because what happens if you're wearing a mask? What happens if you have your face covered? The government still needs a way to identify us. Now, when does this become invasive, pervasive? Well, let's dive into it just a bit more.
When you have the flock cameras, which are now being increasingly showing up in all kinds of neighborhoods. We have traffic cameras, right? Well, this goes way beyond that. It's actually picking up the signatures of any electronic devices linked to you, vehicle, your devices. Bluetooth, by the way, broadcasts all kind, broadcasts a sort of this constant signal. It's very easy then to start correlating who you are, not just based on the car's license plate, but the car's signature. And a lot of these cars, as I well know, they actually have a module inside the car that transmits data pretty much all the time, unless you turn it off. What about all that data that's being collected? It goes into these massive databases, and this is the back door in terms of government access. It's one thing for a private corporation to have it. How do they make money off of that? Yeah, they sell this to like municipalities and others, set them on telephone poles and other prominent locations or less prominent locations. Some are actually masked. The government, this is the third-party doctrine because it's not considered to be your data. So they get broad access through various means. Some through secret programs, backdoor, some through now, if they're actually going after somebody, through national security letters or the equivalent. This is something way less than a warrant because it's considered to be third-party doctrine data, which means it's not yours. So you have no.
So I can understand why governments would want this technology. If somebody committed a murder or carried out a terrorist attack, and covered their face, of course, we would want to know or have another way to identify them. But once the technology exists, is that where its use stops? China, of course, was one of the first countries reported to use gait recognition for policing. By 2018, systems developed by the Beijing company Watrix, Watrix, were reportedly being used or tested by police in Beijing and Shanghai. Watrix claimed it could identify someone from around 50 meters away, that's about 100 feet, even if that person covered their face or turned away from the camera. The software did not necessarily need a perfect image. It needed enough video to analyze the person's silhouette and movements. Wow. That's the surveillance state that we are in. Now, this next video I'm going to show you, well, actually, I mean, this is really going to tell the story here, because this is going to tell you how many flock cameras we actually have in the US right now. And this is just damning. We could do without the music, but this is now 2025. Now into 2026 to where we are right now. This is July 16, 2026. How many cameras we have? I mean, that tells you the story, right? They want to know where we are, what we're doing, what we're engaged in. And of course, this data then can be sold to other companies. It can be leveraged in a multitude of ways. Do you actually feel safer this way? I do, right? But I got to be honest, right? I'm not the most honest American, right? There's shit that everybody does. Everybody has skeletons in their closet. I don't think I'm a bad human being, but I don't know. Sometimes I don't wear my seatbelt. You know, sometimes you have a couple drinks and then you drive. But I'm not, plastered. I'm not pitch black drunk. No, I'm just, I break the law sometimes. Everybody breaks the law sometimes. Sometimes you got to ride your bike on a sidewalk. And I'm not just talking about innocuous shit. I mean, sometimes you just do break the law. Do you want the government? Because there's going to be some people that say, well, I want more surveillance. I want more policing, which is okay, right? I think policing is good. More police, I believe, makes us feel safer. In general, I know some people don't like the police. In general, if you see a cop down the street, you're going to feel safer in general, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Now, when I think about the government being able to see everything that I do at all times, I mean, we already know that they're watching us, right? Our phones, they have a complete read on us. Our phones, our watches, our smart devices, we're already connected. There's nothing that you can hide. You can hide behind a firewall, behind another firewall. The government will always know what you're doing, how you're using the internet. There's nothing you could hide from. Are you scared of that? I kind of am. I want my privacy. I don't care what type of celebrity you are in the world. Even, the Brad Pitts and the Matt Damons, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, they want their privacy. Donald Trump even wants his privacy. But once the technology exists, where does it stop? It's not going to stop. And they'll use it for anything and everything. The only thing that I'll say, I mean, eventually we're going to get robots implemented here, meaning that I can certainly imagine a world where, of course, maybe the final judgment is being made by a police officer, but maybe our police are monitoring a series of events across the United States saying, okay, that's a murder, right? That's theft. Let me deploy police, go arrest these individuals, pinpointing exactly where they are. And that's okay, right? If we have those types of crimes being committed, yes, those individuals should be arrested. But what happens when it's being used for other reasons? Maybe our data is being sold. Maybe, I mean, we also have to contend with the fact that our adversaries around the world are going to want access to this data as well. What happens when our databases are breached? I mean, there's an endless amount of risk here associated with collecting and harboring this data. And do I consent? I mean, I guess because I'm out in the public, I kind of consent by default. Are the Chinese happy that their government is this invasive? Now, today, Watrix, this company, they promote gate recognition for criminal investigations, airports, transportation hubs, government facilities, casinos, residential communities, and entire smart cities. The company claims one citywide monitoring network contains more than 5,000 points, although that number comes from Watrix itself and has not been independently verified. You know what a smart city is? That means the entire city, virtually the entire city and its limits are being monitored by technology. I mean, this is George Orwell. This isn't even Orwellian anymore. This is 1984. Now, the camera cannot look at a completely unknown person and magically know their name. The system normally needs a reference database, so authorities need previous footage connected to you, an identification record, or another biometric profile. The system converts your walk into a template and looks for a similar template in its database. But how difficult would it be to build that database? Well, you walk through an airport and you show your identification. You enter government buildings. You pass a camera outside your workplace. If one of those recordings connects your name to the walking pattern, the system may now have both. And this is why China matters, because gait recognition is not operating by itself. China has built surveillance systems that can combine cameras, facial recognition, identification records, vehicle information, cell phone data, and communications records and other personal information together. In one of their largest cities, Xinjiang, Chinese authorities developed the Integrated Joint Operations Platform, and that collected information from numerous sources and flagged people for additional investigation. Some people were reportedly flagged for activities that were not crimes, including ordinary travel, communication, or religious behavior. And that's the real concern, isn't it? It's not simply that a camera recognizes your walk. That's just invasive. It's what happens when that walk is connected to everything else. And this is not only happening in China. In the United States, we have companies such as Flock Safety, Axon, and Palantir. To be accurate, this is no public evidence. There is actually no public evidence that all three currently identify people through their gait. They perform different parts of the surveillance and policing ecosystem. So they bring all of these pieces together, they feed it to our police, and they decide who to go after and when. Now, these are actually the flock cameras in action. cameras, drones. I mean, where does it stop? And it's all authorized, right? So Flock Safety operates automated license plate readers across the country. Its cameras record license plates, vehicle makes, models, colors, distinguishing features such as bumper stickers, bike racks, trailers, or damage. That's actually why, let's say you cover your license plate up and you keep traveling through toll systems, right? Toll bridges, eventually they're going to catch you. You can't hide from the police at this point, not only because of the technology that we wear, but of course, these extremely invasive systems that they have installed across the country. Did they even ask us if they can do this? No, they didn't. And again, for the people that sit there and say, well, I don't have a problem with this, I don't commit any crimes, that's not the point. You do realize that we virtually no longer have any privacy. There's nothing that they don't know about us. I mean, at some point, are we going to get to the thought police? I'm just invoking 1984 again, of course, but are they actually going to know exactly what we're thinking? I mean, don't our buyer preferences in the form of recommendations, like let's say you go on Amazon or Walmart, or you're searching something that you may have said or thought earlier in the day, now pops up. Some people will call that convenient. Some people will call that outright damnation. I mean, that is like as bad as it gets, doesn't it? I mean, can I even have privacy in my own home? I don't think I can anymore. Therefore, I guess don't commit any crimes, but it's kind of unfeasible, isn't it? Because we all, right? We all have, some skeletons in the closet, right? There's no one that's completely honest out there. So if your car passes a flock camera near your house at 8 in the morning, another near your workplace at 9 a.m., and another outside a political meeting or medical office that evening, the system may not recognize your face, but it can still begin reconstructing your movement. Fox says that more than 12,000 communities use its platform. The ACLU estimates that between 80,000 and 100,000 flock cameras are operating around the country, and argues that fewer than 1% of vehicles captured are connected to suspected wrongdoing. So should the movements of everyone be recorded because a tiny percentage of those people may be connected to a crime? So that means that virtually 100% of us, or 99% of us, are losing our privacy. Maybe we have a safer world. Maybe we don't know exactly what they're doing with the data, but less than 1% of people are being flagged for crimes. So what amount of harm are you willing to cause against the American public or otherwise in order to reprimand less than 1% of the population? Then there's the company Axon. Most people know Axon as the company behind tasers and police body cameras, but Axon now owns this product called Fusus, a platform designed for real-time crime centers. Now, Fusus, F-U-S-U-S, can connect feeds from public cameras, private businesses, body cameras, and other sensors into one operating system. Axon says its technology can recognize activities such as fights, fires, medical emergencies, and unauthorized access, and then alert operators. Now, Axon says that people still make the decisions. That is like the most important part here, because technology, of course, is advancing at a rapid rate. But at what point are we going to install robots to say, hey, you make the decision? I mean, this happens all the time, right? We've all heard of cases where people have been wrongly identified by facial recognition. People have been arrested. People have had their houses broken into by authorities based on misled information coming from these systems. I mean, that's extremely traumatizing. People are actually in prison because of this data. So the system can connect thousands of cameras and automatically detect activity. And now you're adding in gait recognition. The infrastructure is already there. It's already built out. The cameras are there. The live feeds are there. The real-time crime center is there. Now we're introducing another form of identification. So then we have to get to, of course, the issue of Palantir, because that's where the data is ultimately going to end up. All these companies, they want as much data as they could possibly get their hands on, because that'll just feed into their systems and then just give them better decision-making tools, if you will. The output is only as good as your inputs. And these big data companies are trying to understand, hey, what does this random video that someone sent someone else, how can this be incorporated into our platform to better tell us a story? Now, the companies that are primed at doing that are companies like Palantir. Palantir has nothing to do with manufacturing these cameras, but they are trying to collect as much data as they can. Its Gotham platform in particular is designed to connect information from different systems and help governments, military, and intelligence users find relationships within that information. So that's the analytical layer. Now, this gate system potentially identifies your body. Flock identifies your vehicle and where it traveled. Axon connects cameras, police video, and real-time operations. And Palantir can help an agency connect information sitting in separate databases. Now, these companies are not necessarily operating as one combined system, but the technology increasingly makes that kind of combination possible. Because once you feed all of this data into one platform, one interface, the government is not just going to know that you walked past the camera. It's going to know your name, your vehicle, address, associates, travel history, all on one platform. It's going to be able to identify all of the potential locations that you've been in, maybe in the last 24 hours, 7 days, last month, last year. Is that the information you think the government should have their hands on? Should that actually be stored in a database? They already have everything that they need to know potentially about identifying an individual just through our phones. Isn't that enough? And that's where George Orwell's 1984 keeps entering the conversation. People usually reduce Orwell to a slogan: Big Brother is watching you. But the deeper warning was about a society in which constant observation changes human behavior. You don't have to be arrested for surveillance to affect you. If you believe that every movement can be recorded, analyzed, and interpreted later, you begin policing yourself. And that's where the twist comes into play here. Maybe you're not doing anything wrong. Maybe you are completely innocent. You are a man or woman of integrity. You're a good person. You want to do good in the world. What does knowing this information, these tactics, these processes by the government, what does that do to how you approach everyday life? If you knew that you were being recorded every moment of your life, wouldn't that change what you did every day? It would for me. Shit, I would be so scared. I think the only reason why I binge eat is because nobody's watching me. I don't binge eat out in public. Imagine there was a camera watching you all the time. And for those of you that believe in God, I mean, that's probably how we should live our lives. Someone is always watching you. And by the way, if you don't believe in God, for the most part, if you're out there walking on the street, somebody really is always watching you. No matter what you do, somebody is out there, especially in a place like New York City. There's no one that you can actually avoid. That's why we should live respectable lives. We shouldn't do anything that's detestable or distasteful because someone's going to be around to see it. And ultimately, you're setting an example for those individuals because if monkey see, monkey do. You want to be a monkey? It's what you want to do. I mean, could you imagine a kid seeing you turn around and look at a woman? You might think that that's harmless, right? I just turn around and look at a woman because I'm a man. Yeah, that's what we say. I'm a man, whatever. What if a kid looks at that? He's going to look at that and say, okay, that's normal. Is it normal? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What if I'm walking around and I'm smoking? Even smoking, right? These are everyday things. You might think, okay, you're exaggerating, whatever. Is smoking a good example for our generation in general? It normalizes it. Does that mean it's okay? It's certainly not healthy. I don't think anybody would say that it's okay. It's just normal. All I'm saying is that we're always being watched. And that's not a good thing. It's not. I mean, we want some semblance of privacy. But one day we're going to get to the point where there are going to be even more cameras. And maybe you tell yourself that you actually feel safer. I mean, we do when there's a police officer around. We know that usually something abnormal, something crazy won't happen. Something unsafe won't happen when we see a police officer around. Are you going to feel that same type of safety? That's a human being. Are you going to feel that same type of safety when you see that a camera is watching you? Are you going to change your habits? Now, one of my friends, he likes to protest. He doesn't like to protest. He goes to protests, right? And I've gone to protests as well. Are you still going to attend protests? I don't. And I've actually told him this many a times. I tell a lot of people this, actually. I don't feel comfortable doing it anymore because I know that there are cameras always being watched. And I know that that may be used against me. This show will be used against me. I'm sure if I ever wanted to apply for some type of government position, let's say, this material would be used against me. Now, of course, I'm putting it out there willingly. But what about the people that just want to protest? They just want their voices heard, and they're doing so peacefully. Are they going to change their tactics? What if you visit somebody the government considers suspicious? Would you do that? Let's say that's a friend or a loved one. Let me ask you a different question. Would you visit the Middle East? You know what's going to happen if you visit the Middle East, right? Any one of the countries in the Middle East. When you get back to your state inside of the United States, I can speak for this, empirically. When you get back to the United States, they're going to question you. They're going to make sure that you weren't radicalized. Hey, what did you go do over there? And they're going to be very friendly about it. What did you do over there? How long did you go for? Who'd you talk to? What were you interested in? Just a little bit about your life. Where do you live over here? What's your background? Now, of course, you can protest and say, hey, I don't want to answer any of these questions, but that's just going to make your life more complicated. Are all of these cameras going to change human behavior? How can they not? Of course they are. Are you going to feel safe entering a mosque, a church, a political meeting, knowing that Big Brother is always watching you? Are you going to speak freely when the camera is always present? Can you imagine you're always being recorded? Where's the space for banter with your friends? It's impossible. You can't use any type of slang. You can't curse. You can't do anything because you know that it's going to find its way into the hands of very dangerous people. And you don't know what they're going to do with that data. Now, something that I find interesting here is, can someone actually defeat gait recognition by limping, changing shoes, wearing different clothes, or putting their hands in their pockets? Those changes can affect accuracy. So injuries, bags, camera angles, lighting, and poor quality, this all comes into play. However, gait recognition in general will be able to identify and coincide with any of those changes. So if you kind of try to manipulate the system, the technology is only getting better and better, which means that there's almost nothing that you can hide. It's not flawless. And that's also another problem, another hidden risk. The machine can't yet identify everybody walking down the street. That needs to be said clearly here. But an imperfect surveillance system can still be dangerous, because what happens when it produces the wrong match? Is somebody questioned because an algorithm is 75% confident? The answer is yes. It happens all the time. I may be called into the police station because my match resembled someone else's and was, I don't know, a 65%, accurate. Then what? Can I even contend with the technology? I still have to be questioned. I still have to be inconvenienced. And I think most significant here is maybe I'm charged with something that I have nothing to do with. I mean, can I even challenge it at that point? Am I actually going to be able to contend with that technology? Oh, that's not me. That wasn't me. I wasn't over there. Maybe even if I have an alibi, the officer says something different. No, we have it right here on camera that this is where you were. I don't care about your alibi. Well, no, sir, I was home the entire time. No, you were not. And if the only thing that you have is an alibi, maybe you're screwed. Maybe this is not so much just an investigative lead. Maybe this just becomes the evidence. Now, there are actually other legitimate uses for this technology. Gait analysis actually helps doctors monitor Parkinson's disease, neurological conditions, injuries, and mobility platforms. I actually worked on a platform at one of my previous companies in my career where we were actually using gait recognition to monitor different approaches to safety in warehouses. So how are the warehouse workers actually picking up boxes and placing them on pallets? And if they weren't following those safety standards and guidelines, they would just have to go through a new training because they wanted to reduce the amount of injuries on their sites. It could also help locate missing people or identify violent suspects whose face was concealed. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of people that say the measurement itself is not automatically good or evil. But the problem is that technology tends to expand beyond its original justification. It happens all the time. A camera installed to find stolen cars eventually is used for immigration enforcement. Yes, this data is being fed to Palantir. All of that clear identification data that you see in airports, that's all being fed to Palantir today. A lot of the information and this isn't just about singling out Palantir, but a lot of the information that you apply to with the government, like for Medicare services, Medicaid, that's being fed to these other institutions. Whether you know it or not, I mean, the facts are out there. A body camera introduced for police accountability for our own safety is now part of a live surveillance network. So it starts small, but it is a slippery slope. Ultimately, our data is going to be fed into these networks, profiles get built, and there are going to be people that are charged that are innocent. So what are the rules here? What are the safeguards before these systems become universal? Should police need a warrant to reconstruct someone's movements? It's too late. There are no laws around this. How long should gate, vehicle, and camera data be retained for? Right now, it's infinite. It's just building in the database. And as you get more data, you combine that with artificial intelligence, these systems only get smarter. Should private companies be able to share it across jurisdictions? How correct do you have to be in matching someone? Does it have to be 60%, 70%, 80% before you call that person in for questioning? So the reality, today's reality in 2026, and this isn't new, by the way, but we've only been enhancing the technology. Our reality today, around the world, essentially, is that you can cover your face, you can leave your phone at home, you can take a different car, a different route, but you cannot stop having your body. And apparently, you cannot walk down the street without potentially leaving behind a biometric signature. So the question is not, do we want to live in a world where we are stripped of all privacy? I think that's pretty much an unequivocal no. We don't want to live in that type of world. But it's already here. There's virtually nothing that you can hide from the government. That's a sad place, man. I feel like almost like the Constitution has to be rewritten or something. Because we have no place to run, no place to hide at this point. All right, next topic. Let me get this up on screen. Okay. Who doesn't like a little soccer? I mean, it's the World Cup fever, but that's not what this is about. This is about the rivalry that is Barcelona and Real Madrid. And this speaks about everything in not only this sport, but all sports. So, Real Madrid has formally asked UEFA to strip Barcelona of titles and even consider banning the club from European competition because of what's known as the Negreira case. Now, this is somewhat of an old case. It's coming back into the fore now because Real Madrid wants their reparations. So what is the Negreira case? Now, between 2001 and 2018, Barcelona paid companies linked to Jose Maria Enriquez Negreira, who was a former referee in Europe. He was the vice president of Spain's Technical Committee of Referees, one of the highest ranking officials involved in overseeing referees in Spanish football. Now, according to investigators, those payments totaled about 8.4 million euros, or roughly $10 million in today's dollars. Barcelona says those payments were perfectly legitimate. Their explanation is that they were buying scouting reports, technical analysis, and evaluations of referees before matches. Basically, they argue it was consulting work. But here's why people have a hard time believing that, of course. If you're paying almost $10 million over nearly 2 decades to one of the most powerful referee officials in the country, people naturally ask whether you're really paying for reports or whether you're paying for influence. And that's the central question here. Now, here's something important. There's currently no public evidence proving referees intentionally fixed matches for Barcelona. Investigators have not produced proof that individual games were manipulated or that referees were instructed to favor Barcelona. The criminal investigation has continued for years because proving that connection is extremely difficult. So, did Barcelona actually receive favorable calls? Now, before we even continue this, what do you think? Why would Barcelona pay a referee that they had a connection with, that sits on a committee overseeing referees in Spanish football? Why would he receive $10 million from Barcelona for scouting reports, technical analysis? $10 million? I mean, there have been enough stories that have come out over the last 2 decades that showcase that, yes, there's a ton of corruption, betting scandals, there were games that were thrown. We see this across sports. We've seen it in La Liga, in this league, in the Spanish league. We have seen it in their league. Now, of course, everyone can point to controversial penalties, red cards, and offside decisions over the years. Now we have VAR technology, which of course is far from perfect. I mean, seriously, anybody watching this World Cup where we installed new VAR technology, new rules for offsides, I mean, you can still look at the calls on screen and say yay or nay. Because ultimately, a human is making the decision, which should give us comfort, but it does not. I mean, we have seen call after call this World Cup. Red cards being given, yellow cards being given, whatever it is. We've seen too many occurrences to say that, yes, we have enough technology in place that we shouldn't have to worry about any type of corruption. That is false. Barcelona supporters point to plenty of matches where they believe referees hurt them. Real Madrid supporters point to games where they think Barcelona benefited. The problem is that isolated referee mistakes happen every season. What's much harder to prove is whether those mistakes formed a deliberate pattern connected to these payments. So far, no court has concluded that they did. Real Madrid clearly believes the payments alone are serious enough. The club has reportedly submitted a dossier of hundreds of pages to UEFA, arguing that Barcelona gained an unfair sporting advantage and that titles won during the payment period should be taken away. Now, what adds to all of this is, of course, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo were at the height of both of their careers while this was all going on, and they were both playing for Barcelona and Real Madrid, respectively. Real Madrid clearly believes the payments alone are serious enough. The club has reportedly submitted a dossier of hundreds of pages. Club president John Laporta says the payments were legitimate consulting services and accused Real Madrid of trying to damage Barcelona's reputation rather than seeking justice. So what happens now? UEFA could review Real Madrid's complaint, but stripping league titles or Champions League trophies would be an extraordinary step. Historically, sports organizations usually require clear evidence that competitions themselves were manipulated, not simply suspicious financial relationships. So unless they have hard evidence, nothing has been publicly established. But of course, the question that everyone asks is, should a club be making multi-million-dollar payments to one of the highest ranking referee officials in the country in the first place? How is that not a conflict of interest? Whether Barcelona intended to influence referees or not, the appearance of that relationship has become one of the biggest integrity controversies European football has ever seen. Bar none. How can you believe this as someone actually watching the game? And by the way, if you're wondering, did other clubs make these types of payments for scouting analysis or reports on referees? No. The answer is no. Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Sevilla, Valencia, they were all buying referee analysis from Negreira's companies, but no one paid this much. Then Barcelona's defense would be much stronger. They could argue this was a common consulting service used throughout Spanish football. It was not. Nobody has published evidence that any of these other clubs were spending this type of money with Negreira's companies. Even if you accepted Barcelona's explanation that they were paying for referee reports, why did they need reports from the vice president of the referees committee rather than independent analysts? Why were the payments so large? $10 million? And most importantly, why did the payments reportedly stop when Negreira left his refereeing position? And that's the last point that investigators have highlighted, because it raises obvious questions about the relationship. He's no longer there. Barcelona stops payments. So were referees directly bribed? Were specific matches fixed? Did Barcelona buy individual games? All the evidence points to it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, I love to bring up this example. Did you actually need to hear that O.J. Simpson committed the crime? The public is not stupid. I'm not saying that we should jump to conclusions, but this makes no sense. No other club was paying this referee committee this type of money. He was a former referee. He was the vice president of Spain's Technical Committee of Referees. Of course, he holds sway. He holds power. He could essentially make a call to a group of referees refereeing any game and say, hey, we need this team to win. It's really that simple. Or, hey, do what you have to do. Why else does someone pay someone else this type of money? It's $10 million. It's not $10,000. And no other club was paying his companies. Not this amount, at least. So the question here, of course, what's actually being argued in court is, should Barcelona be stripped of their titles? I think that goes too far. There is scandal in every single sport across the world. You have Patriots with the deflated footballs. You have them with Spygate, recording other teams' training activities. You can't police that retroactively. If you messed up, you didn't miss it as a governing body, you messed up. You got to move on. Barcelona has to keep their titles at this point. You can't vacate them, no matter what happened. That's just how it goes, in my opinion. And even if you do vacate them, nobody's going to give a shit. The players already got paid. The club's already made their money. What are you actually taking away from them? If somebody ever Googles something and says, hey, how many titles did Barcelona win? They're going to see a gap in certain titles, and they're going to say, yeah, this was vacated. Yeah, well, these 3 years that they won, they kind of didn't win because they were vacated. They were stripped of those titles. What does that even mean? Scandal, no scandal, cheating, no cheating. Everybody cheats. It's the responsibility of UEFA to make sure that people can't cheat. All right. Thanks for watching. See you next time.